Hello everyone, and welcome to Tackling the 7th Grade Writing STAAR. Today in this video, we will briefly review some test-taking strategies you can use to help you maximize the 4 hours you have to take this test. So let's get started. When you get your STAAR test, you're going to see an essay prompt that looks a lot like this, and several multiple choice questions that look like this. But the first thing you might want to consider doing when you start testing is really looking at the essay prompt. So we're going to start with that. So I just got my test and I wanted to go ahead and see what's my writing task? What am I going to have to write about so that I can start thinking and doing some planning? So let's look at this example. Write an essay explaining the importance of having a good friend. That's the task I have to write about. Whether I like it or not, that's the writing task. So I have to come up with something to write about. So I want you to spend at least 20 minutes thinking and planning some ideas for your essay before you look at multiple choice or anything else like that. Because then you can come back later and revise your thinking. Go back and make changes and things like that. But go ahead and do some pre-writing. And remember, on your prompt you have some reminders right down here. Be sure to clearly state your controlling idea. That's going to be in your thesis statement. The controlling idea here is having a good friend. So I should see the word good friend in your thesis statement. Then you need to organize and develop your explanation effectively, meaning you have to have supporting details and examples to explain why it's important to have a good friend. Make sure you choose your words carefully. This is a great time to use that thesaurus or dictionary to make sure that you have the best words possible. Then you also have to remember to check your spelling, capitalization, punctuation, grammar, and sentence structure. So those are things you can go back and do after you've done your rough draft. So where do you do your planning? Well, let's scroll down a little bit. You're going to flip in your test booklet and you will see pages just like this. Use this pre-writing page to plan your composition. This page is in your booklet for a reason. It means you need to use it. But you also have another option. You can request scratch paper. So if you would rather write on a blank sheet of paper that's not in your booklet, you may ask your test administrator for a piece of scratch paper and do your pre-writing on that paper. So for pre-writing, you can again use some of the strategies that you've practiced in your class. You might want to plan out the beginning, middle, and end of your essay. You might want to write a sample thesis statement here, some supporting details. This is for your brainstorming. So this is where I want to see some of your thinking. So let's review really quick. We've gotten our test booklet and now we're going to read and analyze this prompt. Maybe you want to use the quote. Maybe you're not sure yet what examples you want to use, but that's what this time is for, just planning and thinking. So we've done our pre-writing either in our booklet or on our page here or in our scratch paper. You decide. So we've done our planning. I might even write a full-length rough draft in my composition book here, or I might want to use my scratch paper. So once we've done that, we can start looking at the multiple choice section, which starts right here. Now remember, for revising and editing multiple choice, you need to read the directions carefully. It's very important that you understand what your instructions are. The directions will be found right here, okay, and right here. So make sure that you read those. So it does say read the selection. So let's find out a little bit more about this selection. Sierra wrote this fictional story about a horse named Dudley. Read Sierra's story and think about any revisions she needs to make. Then answer the questions that follow. So there are two things in these directions you need to make a note of. Number one, this is a fictional story. So it's going to have a plot, right? So I need to be looking for that. The beginning, the characters, the conflict, the problem, and the resolution, all of those kinds of things. So it's fictional, so I have to remember that as I'm reading. Then I've been told I need to make revisions. So if you are asked to make revisions, please make sure that you read the entire story in this case. Sometimes it might be an essay, a paper of some kind, but make sure that you read the entire story when it says revisions. So I'm going to read this because what I'm going to have to do with revision is make changes to this story. I might have to add details, I might have to rearrange some sentences, I might have to change up some words, things like that. So it's very important that you read it. You're kind of like the teacher in this case. You're going to read the story and help the student who wrote it make it better. That's your job. So I'm going to scroll through so that you can see what the story looks like. And then we get to the multiple choice. So again, it's revision, so I need to read the entire story. Then I'm going to answer my multiple choice questions that are here. As you can see, we talked about adding detail, effective revision, changing up a specific word, writing a more effective conclusion to the story. Okay, now let's look at the next one. Again, the instructions are the same, but the story's a little bit different this time. Kelsey wrote about an unusual study and the scientists behind it. Read Kelsey's paper and think about the corrections she needs to make. Then answer the questions that follow. So I noticed two different things about this information at the top of this one. For example, it is about an unusual study and the scientists behind it. So she's going to be explaining to you what this study was about and who was behind it. So in this case, it's going to be more of an explanatory or expository paper. But I don't have to make revisions, I only have to make corrections. So if you see the word corrections, you are going to be editing, meaning I'm looking for problems with spelling, punctuation, capitalization, and other grammar usage errors. So, quick review. If I see revisions, I'm going to revise. If I see the word corrections, I'm going to edit. So editing's a little bit different. For example, let's look at a question. How should sentence 2 be changed? Well, I really don't need to read the entire selection to just look at sentence 2. So in this case, I can go back to that sentence and look at it specifically. I didn't have to read the whole thing. I'm just looking at specific errors in specific sentences. So keep that in mind when you're editing. You don't always have to read the whole selection. So if you're running short on time, editing is a good thing to work on because you don't have to read every word. You can just look at the question, here at sentence 2, here at sentence 3, here at sentence 6, so you can see it's much easier sometimes to pinpoint what you need to look at. So let's look at one more. In the following paper, Ivy writes about an experience she and her sister shared. Read Ivy's paper and look for any, there it is, corrections she needs to make. So remember, if you see the word corrections, I'm going to edit. I'm just going to look at those specific sentences listed. Sentence 7, sentence 12, those kinds of things. Okay? One more. Nick plans to share this paper with his history class. Before he does, he would like you to read it and look for any revisions he should make. So again, just so you can see the pattern, revisions. So I know in this case, I need to actually read the selection. So please remember that when you're reading directions. Directions are always important to read, especially on the STAAR. Okay, so quick review one more time. Let's go back up to the top here to our essay prompt. One more time, I get my STAAR booklet, I read my essay prompt, I start thinking about it, I do some planning, I think about where I might want to go with my examples, and I do my planning on scratch paper, or I might choose to do it in my test booklet. Then I'm going to tackle the multiple choice. I'm going to read the directions and make sure that I know whether I am revising or editing because the skills are different. So make sure to read directions, make sure to do some planning, and last but not least, make sure we write a clean final draft on our 26-line paper. So once we've had time to think, revise, edit, now it's time to write your final draft on your lined paper. I hope these tips have helped you. I wish you the best of luck, and I know you'll do a great job on your STAAR test. Thank you.